Hey there, Hill folk, and welcome back to the number one show in my living room, Appalachian Intelligence. Thank you guys. Yeah. Thank you guys for joining us again for another week, for another episode. With you, as always, your hosts, Justin and Ryan and Lance. Before we get started with a little business today, we like to show love when we get love. So we're going to read out a couple of our latest 5-star reviews. The first one is from KSP Raker or KS Praker. I'm not really sure that's how to pronounce it, but I know who it is because it says Rick's sister here. Hey, I'm Richard Meadows' sister, and I'm not sure why he didn't talk to me before coming on here. I own a large farm in Wythe County, and we've seen several things at night over our farm. My husband always dismisses it, but I'm glad to find out I'm not alone. I'm glad Rick introduced me to this podcast. So, Rick's sister, we thank you very much, and we thank you for allowing your awesome brother Dick to come on here and share all of his cool stories.
Oh, Tricky Dick.
Tricky Dick has pretty good stories for us.
He still grows the finest.
This next one is from East Kentucky Tank Puller. It says, keep up the great work. I grew up in Eastern Kentucky, still live here, and I love hearing these different things about places where I grew up and currently live. I'm about 45 minutes from the Cumberland Gap. I travel through the Cumberland Gap Tunnel almost daily, and the episode about the Swift Silver Mine definitely piqued my interest. You guys keep up the good work. I look forward to hearing each and every podcast. You guys rock. Well, East Kentucky Tank Puller,
you mind your business.
We have a treat for you.
Thank you very much for the review. Thank both of you for the love. We really do appreciate it. And East Kentucky Tank Puller, we have a huge surprise and treat for you today because with us, we have the man, Lance's source in this matter of the Swift Silver Mine. We have the keeper of all the knowledge here, J.W. Salyers. J.W., how are you, brother?
I'm well. How about you guys?
Doing well.
We're good.
Good.
We're good, man. We're excited. We are excited for this. So, J.W., we were talking a little bit before we started recording. I was telling you the buzz that the information that you were giving Lance and the bomb that he dropped on us right in the middle of an episode that was supposed to be about CERN and the Georgia Guidestones and alternate timelines, just weird stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He just starts dropping all this big gigantic bombshell about this Swift Silver Mine and how he was talking to you and was telling us some of the stories. Now, he did briefly paraphrase some of this stuff, but I would much rather hear it from you than I would Lance. So if you would like, just dive into some of this stuff, man. How did you get this information that you've received on the Swift Silver Mine? What information do you have? What can you do to help us find this stuff?
It's a good question. We'll dive into it. This has been probably let me think right quick. What are we in 2022? We're probably 14 years ago ish, give or take a year. And I had my first encounter with a guy I'll tell you about here in just a moment, but we'll fast forward to about, 3, maybe 4 weeks ago. We were at work before students came in, and as I normally do, I walk up and down the hallway just looking for someone to talk to, really. And Lance's door is open as always, and I walk in and I don't know, just shooting the bull, catching up from over the summer. It was early in the school year, and all of a sudden he introduces me to your podcast, and I had no idea that you guys are doing a podcast. And I like a good conspiracy theory too. I like some things that are unexplained. I like to dabble in that stuff a bit, not to the extreme of you guys, but I do enjoy it. And he starts talking about some things, and then brings up the if I'm not mistaken, some caving and just whatnot, and Anyway, just stuff that really piqued my interest. And I don't know how Lance and I got on this topic, but the Swift Silver Mine, I was like, oh, really? Ah, cool. So I listened to, some of the stuff that he was telling me, and I was like, well, hold on here. I've got some information you might be interested in. Again, now let's go back to about 14 years ago, about 08, maybe 09-ish. My dad and mother are in Florida. Honestly don't know what they're doing there at this time, but they're gone for a couple weeks, and he's looking to buy. My dad is always looking to buy some land or whatever. He's just kind of like me, just generally interested in other places. And so he gets back home here to where we live, and he's telling me, I thought I had some property down around, I think it was St. Augustine, if I'm not mistaken, but it fell through, and kind of left it at that. About a week later, he gets a phone call from the guy who was supposed to sell him the land, and again, that their deal or whatnot fell through. I think the guy sold it to another person and kind of out from under my dad after they had agreed. And anyway, long story short here, get a phone call about a week later, and he's talking to my dad about how he more or less felt bad about how the deal went down, the dealing. He wasn't able to sell it to my dad, and my dad is like me, likes to talk, and they got on. This guy told him, was like, look, I feel really bad about. Now, again, this is my interpretation, just my recollection of it all. Felt bad that the land deal didn't go through. So I tell you what, I've been this guy that I'm talking about. His name is Don Anderson, and lived down in Palm Beach County, near Jupiter, West Palm, if you're familiar with that part of Florida. And said, look, I've been dabbling in treasure hunting my whole life, and I know you're from Southwest Virginia. You live in that area, and have you ever heard of the Swift Silver Mine? And my dad was like, maybe when I was a little boy, type of thing. And now again, I'm paraphrasing my dad at this point. Maybe when I was a little boy, I heard about it and whatnot, and haven't thought about it in 30 years or whatnot. So my dad and I and my brother, we kind of, and then back in the not real infancy of the internet, but at that time we're on dial-up connections. We're looking up Swift Silver Mine, and wow, this stuff is local legend here in Eastern Kentucky and Southwest Virginia, and we're like, dang. So back to Don. Don is at this point telling my dad, I've laid eyes on it. I know where it is. At this point we don't really question him. We're kind of like, okay, cool. So he's telling us, here's where it is, and I'm going to need you guys to, because you're young. I'm 46 right now, so I was in my mid 30s at this point, still capable of, or more eager, I guess, to get out and climb and explore. And so fast forward a little bit, my brother and my dad and myself, we're like, yeah, we'll get out there and look for it, Don. Just can you give us some more descriptive or a better description of where this thing is? So through the mail, of course, we don't email at this time. Don at this point was in his mid upper 70s, so he's not an emailer, so he has to mail things through the mail. A few days later, we get a hand-drawn map, more or less, of where he says the Swift Silver Mine is. So we take that and we kind of compare it to some local mapping, and anyway, we think we have a good idea where this thing is. So my brother and I, not knowing what the heck we're doing or where we're going, we drive to this location, and we get out, and the day passes and we're just climbing through the mountains, and long story short, we obviously didn't find it, but stuff starts looking real familiar with what Don had described, stuff that I had no idea even existed. We find some of these markers, I think is what Don would call them, or treasure hunters would call them, and just things that he described to us that we saw with our own eyes, like, well, son of a gun. Now we start thinking, all right, Don, again, we're talking by phone, right, with Don at this point, and we're thinking, how's a guy that is living in South Florida know anything about this area? And we talked to Don again, like, all right, Don, so why, if you live in Florida, when was the last time you were in Southwest Virginia? And he's like, he's back in the early 80s. I'm like, good God. Okay. It's just a long time ago. So a lot of things have changed, in that time. But anyway, from Florida over the phone, pre-internet, I guess you would call it, he's able to describe some of the features of this area. So obviously, I know he's telling the truth about being here and being here in the early 80s and things like that. So, on my initial contact with this guy, everything's kind of checking out. Getting back to the internet, even in those times, you're still able to Google people. So I Googled this Don Anderson guy, and man, it starts popping up stuff that he had told me, which he had found some part of one of Columbus's ship. He was part of an excavation team or exploration team with that. He had successfully lobbied Palm Beach County to let him dig for part of Blackbeard's treasure that was on the treasure coast of Florida. That checked out. There's an article on the internet about that. I can go on and on with just stuff internally that I'm thinking, is this guy really a quack, or does he know something or whatnot? And everything that I checked on this guy for checked out. Okay. Now that's really just my initial dealings with Don, just getting to know him a little bit. So we'll fast forward a little bit. I'll come back to the Swift Silver Mine. There's other things that he had me check out for him from Florida. I'm living well north of him. He's sending me to these places. He's calling me on the phone, having me mentally draw these maps and whatnot, and I'm doing it because I don't know any different. So he sends me some information, or tells me on the phone that there's a Civil War story that I want to tell you, and that's Don talking to me. There's a Civil War story I want to tell you about. It's about he called it the Northern versus Southerners. The Northern Army was after some stolen gold that the Southerners had taken, and the Southerners were kind of trapped in northern Kentucky, and wanted to obviously keep the gold, but keep it away from the Northerners. And they found this more or less what we would call an outhouse these days, but in 1860, I'm not sure what, just a hole in the ground that, place to go to the bathroom, and they threw it in there. And so Don tells me that story, and he's like, look, I want you to go find that. I'm like, okay, Don, okay. Well, next time I'm in northern Kentucky, I'll do it. And he's like, no, I really want you to go find it. I was like, all right. So he sends me to, I forget the name of the county in Kentucky, but it's up near Cincinnati. And my brother and I, we drive up there because we're about 4 hours from that location. And anyway, we go to the county courthouse. We find these land deeds and maps of how it's just the map of the area. And I send it back to Don. This is kind of a two-part trip here. I send those maps back to Don. I guess he couldn't get them from Florida. I don't know, but I sent those back. And he was big on dowsing, taking rods or whatever, and being able to locate metal from a picture. Now, how that happens, I have no idea, but he claimed he could do it. I'm skeptical at this point. So he douses this map that I've sent him, sends it back with a big X on it. X marks the spot, right? So, we go back to that location near Cincinnati, and we go up to this house and knock on the door. I've got a metal detector at this point, And I guess 14 years ago, you may not think a lot about it. Someone coming up on your porch, knocking on the door, but there was nobody home. And I knew we would be trespassing, but it was kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Nobody was home. We waited 10, 15 minutes in the driveway. Nobody came to the door. So we kind of just helped ourselves, I guess, on this person's property. And we go there, and it's kind of just a big pile, like a dirt pile that, I got a hit on the metal detector. And so at that point, we knew something was down there, but I'm not going to go digging on someone else's land. You just obviously don't do that. I forget the details on how I learned this, but it come to find out about it's an Indian burial ground that was documented on through the court's house or something. It was documented Indian burial ground. So somehow the guy knew that he was connecting the Civil War story I started a moment ago with this. I don't know how they intertwine, but there's a bunch of gold or some form of precious metal there on that Indian burial ground. So that's one story with Don that checks out. And I, at this point, I'm really a believer of Don. So, that's again just one. Now, I need to tell you that Don passed away shortly, probably 2 years after I initially met him. He had pancreatic cancer and died. I had went probably 3 months without hearing from Don. He would call once every 10 to 14 days, almost on schedule. And again, he spoke. He would bounce from topic to topic to topic to topic, and then back to another topic. And here I am writing all this down. So it was hard to follow him. His brain worked really quickly, and it was hard to follow him. But piecing everything together, I told you a moment ago, he was in on a Palm Beach County excavation of Blackbeard's treasure, or part of the treasure. And before, one of the last times I talked to him, he had invited me to come down, because I used to live in West Palm Beach many years ago playing baseball. So I was very familiar with the area, and he invited me to come down. And I hadn't heard from him for like 3 months. So I call him. This was like January, and I think it was his wife or someone had told me he had passed away. So I lost that trail of down in Palm Beach County. But he was telling me stuff about, treasure hunters. In this instance, you have to be aware of turtles on the beach and stuff like that. There's so much bureaucracy you have to go through to get permission from the higher ups and their higher ups, just to dig and stuff. So with a lot of this, there's a lot of hoops to jump through. Now, back to the Swift Silver Mine, giving you insight there on Don Anderson. Back to the Swift Silver Mine. Well before he died, the 2 years that I was talking with him, I would get hand-drawn maps, and he would talk again. He would talk quickly, but he would tell me like the history attached to this thing, and stuff that I hadn't paid, even though I'd lived here forever, hadn't paid close attention to. Like there was a choo-choo rock that somehow it was, I don't know if it was sacred, but Indians really used this specific rock to I don't know a lot of history, connecting the dots here. I don't know a lot of the historical facts, but it was sacred to the Indians. And sure enough, I've shown Lance a picture of a rock. It looks identical to a choo-choo train. Now, I know they didn't have trains in the Indian days, but this must be a white person name for this rock. But this specific rock over the years became known as choo-choo rock. And sure enough, I've got a photograph of it. I've witnessed it. I've seen it with my own eyes. It does exist. From that rock, again, Don had drawn me out maps from this rock. There's this big cliff system that goes around a local mountain, and I have followed that cliff system, and it is treacherous climbing, dangerous climbing. but it is there. You know, everything Don had told me and drawn for me is there. Again, a guy who hasn't been in this area since the early 1980s, some almost 20 years earlier than when I was talking to him. Everything just checks out. Everything checks out. And I mean, I can go on and on with stuff about Don, but everything just checks out with him. Now, where does that leave us today? I still have not found the Swift Silver Mine. That said, I've not been up searching in about 10 years. I'm not saying I'd given up hope, but it's not easy. Okay, it's not easy. It's not just, you know, X marks the spot on the map, you walk right to it. That's not how it works, as everybody knows. So again, I'm not giving up on it, but I have kind of pushed it to the side. And then coming full circle here, when I talked to Lance that day a month ago, I was like, okay, all right, there's others out there that I know knows a lot about it and probably knows more historical facts about it than I do. And so here I am. That kind of ties us all in right there.
Hey, W, tell these boys the story, because they have, I guess, some stories they have heard as well about people have seen these Swift Silver Mine coins, and have other people have found those coins in the area as well.
Yeah.
Tell them what Don told you about those coins.
All right. This location that Don tried his best before he died to lay out to me allegedly was, and he called it the mother lode, the actual mine itself. Okay.
What would he say, JW, when you talk about the mother lode?
Billions. And he stuttered with the B, billions, not millions, but billions of dollars of silver. And at this time, silver was something like $6 an ounce. I mean, you can do the mathematics on that. Anyway, this the mine itself was, you know, they would extract the silver out of it, melt that down into coins or, you know, stuff to trade with, something of value to trade with. And that is what we're finding all over this area. People who have found coins, silver coins, you know, that is from that mine. And, you know, that's Don's words from many years ago.
And they had a smelting pot, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and thanks for bringing that up. I'd left that part out. The mine sits, you know, in the middle of a mountain, right? And Don kept describing to me, again, he was in this area in the early 1980s. Don kept describing to me a staircase, a long rock staircase. And I had a picture of it. I'm 50-50 on it, whether it was hand-drawn or an actual Polaroid photo of the old staircase. Just looked like a, you know, a long rock, natural, not stacked by man, but natural staircase that went up into the mountain. And according to Don, that staircase, you follow it straight up the mountain and there's the mine. But here's the issue with that staircase. It no longer exists. At least I have not seen it. It no longer exists. There has been some local roads built and just road. I think, in my opinion, what's happened is at the bottom of this mountain, there's been a road built and it has, due to construction, wiped out that staircase too. The average man probably would never notice it as a staircase, but that's my interpretation of that. So yeah, well, a lot of stuff, a lot of unanswered stuff.
JW, get into a little bit of, I can't think of the name, but the Indian chief. Chief
Benji is, again, I'm actually a history major, believe it or not. As far as local history, I don't know a whole lot about it. But Chief Benji, an Indian chief in this area, was known to attack white settlers and take possessions. And so during these times, everybody is trying to, one, watch out for Chief Benji and his people, but hide their stuff from Chief Benji. And you know, this is Don telling me this stuff. Well, I'm like, okay. So I remember Chief Benji. Well, I'm working at another school years ago, and then during the school day, part of my job is going out on the road and checking on kids at work. But so I'm driving one day and I see this road sign, and it talks about Chief Benji. Chief Benji. It's a documented historical marker in our area. And here I'm reading about Chief Benji, and I'm like, oh my God, Don was right. Don was right. I mean, he basically illustrates or talks about everything Don had told me on this one road sign about, white settlers having to watch out for Chief Benji, and Chief Benji is a big historical figure in this area, and just another connecting other dots to what Don had told me years ago that I'd kind of forgot about or whatever, and then bam, there it is. It's just, again, a lot of stuff that what this guy was telling me years ago is right there in front of us. So,
just to add a little bit to the Don Anderson mystique, JW, didn't he mention as well other just locations, Eastern Seaboard area of the other potential Civil War gold, something? Weren't you saying something to that effect?
I'm not exactly sure what specifically you're talking about, but he has been up and down the East Coast. He's just been up and down throughout his lifetime. He had been up and down the East Coast finding just Civil War relics and sometimes pieces of precious metals, whether it be silver, whether it be gold. Again, he talked in circles, and it was so hard to really stay with what he was trying to tell you. But yeah, I mean, to your point, all up and down the East Coast, probably up as far as, say, Pennsylvania, all the way down to Florida, and just, it was his life's mission. I guess maybe his hobby was just treasure hunting, and he was good at it. And he did tell me that he had laid eyes on this silver mine. And so one of our last conversations is like, Don, how come you never, capitalized on this? And then it makes perfect sense. He's like, look, if me as one person, a regular Joe, finds this, the government's going to take it out from under you, is what he says or said. And it's going to take more than just average Joe treasure hunter going and, I found it, give me that money. It doesn't work that way, according to him. There's a lot of hoops to jump through. Now, this reminds me, Lance, I told you about this. He also had a local buddy that lived in our area here that helped him look for it, and they both found it allegedly. And that guy died, years before I even spoke with Don. So, there are people in the area that was connected with Don other than myself. I just found out about that, at the end of my conversations with Don before he passed away. There's stuff down in Tennessee that he sent me. I forgot about this. He sent me down to near Elizabethton, Tennessee. I can't remember the exact community, but anyway, I went and talked to one of his other treasure hunting buddies who he had passed away, but I got to talk to his wife about their explorations together, and just, it was a lot of fun. That's all I can say. A lot of fun. If I remember right, this guy's wife, his former treasure hunting buddy's wife, was she just told story after story about them two out treasure hunting locally, and most of it seemed like when you get in Eastern Tennessee, it seemed like it revolved around Indians and things like that, and just good stuff. Just good stuff. I wished I had recorded those conversations that I had 12, 14 years ago, but no one had smartphones at that time. You couldn't just record easily, and so here I was just writing everything down. So that's my encounter with Don Anderson.
That sounds so close to John Anderson. Every time he says that, all I'm thinking of is Seminole Wind.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, that's well, number one, you, sir, are a captivating storyteller. Like I was in it the entire time. But like all the things that you're talking about, the things that Dawn is talking about with all of this, I mean, for me, that means a lot. If somebody can say, oh, well, here's this spot, I've seen it, here's a little bit of info, but they start naming off landmarks, boom, 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 boom. And it's something that you can go look at and sit and, that's confirmation for you yourself to say, this dude's been here. He knows what he's talking about. But you hear so many people around here say, oh, well, when I was a kid, my uncle or my cousin or so-and-so, they said they saw this mine, or they said they saw this treasure, or this one cave where it was like, there's so many stories. But what I'll say about those, not a lot of them have the evidence that that Don Anderson is giving you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree. And I'm always, I guess, somewhat skeptical of any story. And at the time, I felt like I did my due diligence to make sure this guy checked out, and everything that he would tell me about checked out. I'm a believer. I'm a believer. I wished he hadn't passed away. Who knows where we'd be now had he not? But one of our last conversations, he was talking about possibly coming up. Of course, he died in, I think, December, and I found out in January. One of our final conversations, we were talking about him possibly coming up here when the weather got good enough to get outside, but that never happened. So I really, really wished I would have met him in person, but I only got to know him over the telephone. But I looked forward to them phone calls. You never knew, you wouldn't get a text message from him. Of course, we're talking 14 years ago. You wouldn't got a text message, hey, I'm going to call you. Are you going to be available? No, it was just ring the old landline and, hey, everybody, it's Don. That's what it was. So we'd look forward to those phone calls.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. The guy sounds like a national treasure himself.
Yeah. Yep. I would agree.
And that's what the story was. Obviously, the pipe dream of dogs and silver obviously is going to make everybody's eyes twinkle a little bit. But the conversations that JW and I have had, it's just like the more you hear and the more evidence that that JW remembers or that Dawn told him, it's like we looked at each other like it's there. It's just a matter of like there's not. And would consider myself, a bit of a skeptic and a bit of a realist, thinking that of course, oh yeah, there's all this silver up there, but like I full wholeheartedly believe it's there. It's just a matter of finding it and being able to get the resources needed, the permits needed, and all the things that have to go with it as far as getting it out of the ground or out of the earth. Essentially, but like I'm 100% sold that it's there. It's just a matter of getting to it and getting the resources to get it out of there.
Yeah, I would agree with Lance. I'm 100% sold as well.
Well, luckily for us, me and Ryan work for a guy who is also partially obsessed with this Swift silver mine legend. And he has equipment. He has everything that we would need. He deals with land grants and deeds. And I mean, goodness gracious, he owns his own company. He owns his own campground. He owns a lot. So as far as the bureaucracy and the red tape and of course, we're going to have to start. We got to talk contracts before we go into this thing. But no, I mean, real talk, like seriously, if you go into this and by some chance, and honestly, I'm just going to be totally honest. If we stumbled up on it, this, unprocessed, just silver, I wouldn't know what I was looking at anyway. Like,
it's black. It's black. I am told that it is black. So to the naked eye, unless you knew what you was looking for, you don't know it is silver.
It would just look like coal.
Yeah. Again, that's what
Huh.
I'm told. That's my understanding.
So that's my next question. How do we identify it if we do find it?
That's a wonderful question. I'm sure we'd have a great inclination of that being silver.
Take a knife and stab coal, you go through coal, boys. You ain't going through silver.
Probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That
And
makes
Jay,
sense.
How many, just give me a rough estimate. How many hours have you spent in the general location, you and your brother, trying to uncover this location?
Oh, dang. It's only safe during the cold months because of rattlesnakes and copperheads and things of that nature. Probably off and on, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Hours wise, I wouldn't even know where to begin. But I don't know.
Days and days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just days and days.
I know he was telling me
Wow.
stories of him up on cliff faces, kind of scaling across and like putting his hand in the hole.
Yep.
This would be a really good place for a
Yep.
rattlesnake to sit and
Yep.
just pop out and snap you in the nose.
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, it's pretty treacherous. So, and what Lance is describing is, rocks right in your face, having to scale around those rocks, and you're worried about, are you going to fall through a big hole at your feet or put your hand in something as you're reaching for the next point? Is there something they're going to come out and bite you? It's interesting, to say the least.
JW, just kind of briefly go over to, you're talking about some of the boulders and things that you have seen. I guess areas behind the boulders that you haven't been able to explore, but kind of seen and kind of wondered what if maybe.
Yeah, exactly. There's rocks bigger than. I mean, there's other bigger rocks on Earth, but for our area, there's massive rocks that you can tell that which has moved in the past 250 years. They may have rolled down the hill or whatnot. A lot of loose rocks, big loose rocks that are kind of just sitting on top of each other. And if get a little jolt from the earth or something, they go tumbling. There's a lot of those. That's the terrain. Giant boulders, jagged. You can tell again the rocks had fallen from above. I'm wondering if those rocks hadn't fallen over the mine entrance. That's kind of where I'm at now. I think over the course of the past 300 to 400 years, some of those rocks have enclosed the mine, and I think without big equipment, it would be difficult to find. I really believe that's one of the reasons no one's ever found it. I truly believe that. I think it's just covered up. But I think there's technology out there now to be able to locate that. And technology that I do not have.
Right, as we were talking today, like you could probably at least convince whoever it is you need to convince, at least do some core sampling, that you would probably be able to at least legitimately be able to either knock out some areas that you may think where it's at, and it's definitely not here. But it also could be a situation where you drop a core down there and boom, you pull that core back up and open her up, got the plastic open and look, and right there she may be. I mean, I think that's a legitimate possibility as well. Would you agree with that?
I would say so. Yeah, I would definitely say so.
Wow, it sounds like it's booby trapped to me. I feel like
That-
Indiana Jones.
Honestly, as in my first explorations, first 2 or 3 times I was out looking, that crossed my mind. I mean, I was carrying a gun. I didn't know what to do. What if there's other people in this area looking? And so I did. I took a gun with me just in case. Could this stuff be booby trapped? And so yeah, it definitely Indiana Jones vibes. I know what you're saying.
So what if I know that Lance has showed you the pictures of this, the cliff rock carvings that we've came across. That's kind of I'm just now finding out is a really big deal around our area. Somehow I'd never heard about it my entire life. Thanks a lot, community. Let me down. What if this cliff rock carving is not a representation or a map or anything of the actual mine? What if it's a map to get around the booby traps around this place? Huh?
It's plausible. It's plausible.
We can't prove you're wrong.
I mean, I'm looking at this thing from a whole like Indiana Jones, Dan Brown, code breaking. Like this is big. Okay, this is a big deal. When blind John Swift had his boys seal this place up and booby trap it and say, you know what? If I'm too blind to go back and find this thing and do anything about it, I don't have any heirs, I ain't leaving it to anybody, nobody's going to find it. I mean, I don't know.
Makes sense to me.
What did you think about that rock, the carvings in that, JW?
It's the first I'd ever seen it or seen of it. Didn't know it existed. That's actually how Lance and I got talking about the Swift Silver Mine. Was he showed me the picture of you guys and what you had discovered, and I mean, I don't know specifically how it all ties in with where I think it is compared to where I guess you guys originally thought it may be or could be. I don't know. I think it's fascinating. I do think it's fascinating. I don't have any knowledge of it, if that's what you're asking, but I think it's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of legend that is involved with this Swift Silver Mine. You know, it'll talk about like an upper mine and a lower mine and how, you know, the silver was like transported back and forth between these upper and lower mines. You know, they try to tie a lot, and by they, I'm talking one specific guy that was courteous enough to put a PowerPoint on the internet of all the information and evidence that he had came across. But still, a lot of it was a reach. You know, it really was a giant stretch, and trying to tie these different carvings here and there that he's found in different states and surrounding counties and all of these different things. And for me, one of the mines, I'm believing the lower mine was thought to be in this area and was thought to be, you know, and has been for as long as I've known, and in a different location than what you believe it to be. But it talks about this upper mine being like around the Red River Gorge area, which to me doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Now that's over in Kentucky, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's probably, shoot, I don't know, 4 hours.
Yeah,
You know, like a 4-hour drive.
if I'm not mistaken, it's on the other side of Wolfe County, Kentucky, or maybe in Wolfe County, Kentucky.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Well, I mean, and to me, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Not for the time period.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, I could see if they like found a big mine there and found a big mine here, you know, and all that. But to transport back and forth, to me, doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
That's a long
Hundreds.
distance. Yeah, that's a long distance in 2022. I couldn't imagine 350 years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, mentioning the upper and lower, it's according to Don, the staircase I told you about, the staircase that probably no longer exists, according to Don, would have been the lower mine, bringing out silver from the upper mine down to that staircase, and forming it into coins. That's the way it was described to me, or forming it into pieces of silver. So, you know, again, I'm not a historical guy, local history, but just remembering back, you jogged my memory there of Don talking about the upper and lower. That was the significance of the staircase. The lower part of it led up directly up to the upper part. So,
you know what else I just thought about this rock carving? This path, roadway, bridge looking thing that goes down the center of it. Also kind of looks like a stairway.
I said when we saw that thing, boys, that looked like a mine shaft. I mean, as soon as we got up there and looked at it, I kind of looked around that because you have a little person up at the top, and a little person down the
Yep.
bottom. We said it kind of looks
Yep.
like a bridge, and I kind of looked around. I was like, boys, that looks like a freaking mine shaft. But it makes no sense for that to be, if we're trying to make that connection, it makes no sense for that rock to be where it's at in location to where most people think that this mine's at. Like, it makes no sense for us to be there. But according to this PowerPoint and other information you see, even over where most people think this is at, there's other carvings that are very similar, right? Very similar to what we see, what we found here in Dickinson County, or there in Dickinson County, I guess. So I mean, it's just so much. Like, there's so many different outliers that kind of line up if you get to thinking about it, but at the same time, there's some reaching that you have to do to make them line up. But when you think about it, it also makes a lot of sense. And then you incorporate all this information that Dawn has given. It's just like, well, this freaking thing's it's here somewhere. I mean,
It is.
It's here somewhere.
It is. No, and I'm one of the most skeptic people on earth. I like to do research before I dive into anything, but I'm thoroughly convinced. Don thoroughly convinced me that it's there, and someone someday is going to find it.
And that's going to be us.
I very well could be. Very well could be.
I hope so.
But
I've had my fingers crossed since I heard about it.
Well, I mean, at this point, you know, like everything's a possibility. Like all roads that we're looking down are possible to be some kind of connection or some kind of attachment to this silver mine. And, you know, we're talking about, well, you mark this off and this is a reach and that's a reach. But like I was talking a little bit earlier, there's one legend, but there are so many variations of that legend. And there's so many variations of the location and exactly what has been found, what hasn't been found. I've heard everything from a guy's walked into a cave and spent the better part of 2 days filling 5-gallon buckets up of silver coins and walking out, to no, this is in pure form within the mountain and it's over around the breaks. And the natives had a tunnel system from where they would camp and stuff down around the Hayside area and go directly through the mountain to get to the breaks. I've heard, you know, of course, Pine Mountain goes up all the time. You know, people are talking about Pine Mountain, this thing being on Pine Mountain. I mean, there's so many variations that it's hard to, and that's just talking about like here in Southwestern Virginia. People in Eastern Kentucky firmly believe it's in Eastern Kentucky.
Yes.
People in Southern West Virginia believe this thing is in West Virginia. People in Tennessee, people in North Carolina, this area of Central Appalachia, this legend is huge, and it's at the forefront of a lot of people's minds. And a lot of people, just like JW, have put in a lot of time and effort and research into hunting this treasure. But again, I don't believe any of these people had the resource and the evidence that JW has.
I've never met anybody. In fact, I've never met anybody until Lance that was even interested in it. Now, to this level, I've I've talked to people, and the old timers have mentioned it to me and whatnot. But as far as actively researching it, actively studying it, actively trying to connect the dots, never met anybody until Lance and I stumbled on our conversation a month ago. So I'm excited. Knowing that there's other people out there that is excited as I am about it.
This goes back to, boys, what we talked about. It was just a crazy coincidence. Like JW and I have spent we probably spend too much time talking to each other during the day.
Probably.
I mean, just about everything. I mean, once he
Yeah.
moved up to where I work at 4 or 5 years ago, we just kind of just hit it off. We just kind of think a lot alike, had a lot of the same ideas on things. And we just have conversations about just stuff, just talk about stuff. He was, again, just in catching up. And I knew, like I said, JW is a moderately successful streamer in his own right. And I knew that he was that. And I had kind of set on the fact that we were doing this podcast until it had gained a little traction, just to kind of mention it in his ear, get some tips and, advice of things that he had done to kind of help push our show a little bit. And it just kind of came up. It just happened to be the Sunday or the Monday or Tuesday after we had gone looking for the rock. Just kind of crazy coincidence that it kind of started talking about it, right?
Yep.
This is all more, JK, as you always say, just kind of like just more building that tribe, more people around, just trying to talk about fun stuff and have great ideas and have a great conversation about things. And then once he started, like, how he was talking about him talking to Dawn and writing these notes down. Once JW started, I was like, just writing stuff down, writing down notes as much as I could, so I can remember as much of the information as I possibly could, because I could tell. I've known JW several years now. I know that he's not a BS type of guy. Like, we like to tell a good story, but when he locks in to tell you something, you can kind of see it in his eyes. He's convinced. He convinced me real quick that there's the billions of dollars of super in the local area here, that somebody's just got to find it.
That's it. And yeah, as Lance said, we just, what's the chances? I don't know. But again, he brought this up to me coincidentally, I guess. And then, here we are. I don't know. I'm just excited about it.
And this man also spent the summer at the Mammoth Caves.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, we went to Mammoth Cave, which I had no idea about.
Talking about that too. I was like, well, we might need to talk about the Mammoth Caves.
Yeah.
Well, now in JW's offense, in his defense. We're not playing offense, we're playing defense. Yeah. In his defense, a few years ago, we went and visited the Mammoth Caves as well. Me and the whole family, we're down there checking the place out, doing this little tour, doing, all this different stuff. And even while I was down there was a couple of people that are like, there's been some Bigfoot sightings around here and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I wasn't diving into the stuff then like I am now. And now I think back to that trip and I'm like, holy crap. If I would have known this and this and that and this, I would have never let Connor and Alyssa run around that corner or do this.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I feel you.
I just took 2 standard national park tours there at Mammoth Cave, and we enjoyed it, but I had no idea there's more to the story, as they say, with Mammoth Cave. Had no idea.
That's a whole different episode, brother.
Yeah.
That's, my goodness.
How far are they reported to run?
Well, I think 400 and
northeast, right?
Yeah, I think 440 some miles of it have been mapped.
420 to be exact.
420. Okay. Yep. But it's projected that this thing goes like all up and down the East Coast, pretty much up into the Northeast, out toward the Midwest. This thing is projected to be miles and miles and miles, which I heard a stat the other day on a different podcast that I was listening to. And the guy said that 1% of the Earth's cave systems have been discovered. And 1% of that 1% have been mapped.
Good Lord.
So it's hard to say, boys. It's hard to say what's going on beneath our feet.
Yeah.
But back to the topic at hand. So, JW, are you on board with us diving headfirst into this thing and turning into full-blown treasure hunters with you at the helm, pointing fingers and mapping places, and the guy in the chair? That's what I'm going to call you, like on Spider-Man, the guy in the chair.
All right. I'll be the guy in the chair. I'll be the guy in the chair.
Yes. Look, if you're going to be the guy in the chair, we got the Billy Goat. Ryan will climb up and down those cliff faces. He don't care.
It don't
He's
bother me.
He's a crazy man.
Sounds good. You might want to stretch before you head up. That's all I can say.
No, boys, I'm excited for this. I really am. And the cool thing about it is a lot of other people are excited about it as well. And if nothing else, like, we have a lot of crazy conversations on this show. We've talked to a lot of people. We've talked to a lot of different guests, and, all these paranormal stories and ghosts and cryptids and UFOs and all this weird stuff that we talk about. Yeah, that's all super interesting. It really is. But like with this kind of content, what we're talking about here, it's piqued the interest of a whole different populace that are really intrigued and really excited about it and want to know, what's going on with it. And for that, I mean, that gets me excited to have people excited about what's going on. So, I mean, that's again, Lance, and just building the tribe. That's all we've wanted to do with this thing. We've wanted to have the conversations and to bring people together and, talk about weird stuff. And people can say what they want, this ain't, I'm not listening to this episode. It ain't about the paranormal, blah, 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 blah. Look, it don't get a lot weirder than a 300-year-old treasure that people have spent their entire lives searching for. And we think that we may have a good indication of where this thing is at least general location where this thing is at.
And like people have pieces of silver, like there's people have these things, not an abundance of them, but there's physical evidence that people actually have that this thing obviously at some point, maybe on a smaller scale, maybe on a bigger scale, but at least the scale is there that people have, have at least hands-on, at least a little bit of physical evidence that this thing did exist. So it doesn't get, to me, any more weird than sometimes the truth is the weirdest thing out there.
Yeah, man. I'm with Dawn.
Like Lance said, there is evidence that people have found, and you guys too, with your findings over in Dixon County. There's no doubt that is intertwined with this whole Swift Silver Mine. There's just no doubt about it, and not just you guys. There's countless amounts of other people who have found cave drawings or silver bits or coins or whatnot. I am thoroughly convinced, and like you said, Justin, I am with Don too.
Yeah, Team Don all the way.
Yeah.
Man, I've never met this guy. I mean, I know you never met him face to face, but gosh, I am Team Don. I'd love to sit him down right here, right now. Talk. Maybe that's what we need to do for the paranormal side. Maybe we need to have a seance and try to bring old boy back to talk for a little while.
Oh man,
I may have to sit that one out.
On that one, please go right ahead.
All right, I'll give him permission to possess me, but only until we find it.
Fair enough.
Oh man. Wow. So you boys got any more questions for JW? JW, got any more info that you'd like to share about this?
That's about all I can offer. Sure enough, as soon as I take the headsets off here, I'll think of 12 other conversations I had with the guy. And right off the top of my head,
he can tell me all the things he remembers.
Yeah.
Hey, look, we're here. Business hours are Monday through Sunday, 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. We're available.
Gotcha.
So any of these conversations pop up, you let us know.
Sure thing.
But since this is a paranormal podcast, I don't want to go an entire episode without. Have you had any experiences? Anything?
Nothing. No, I haven't, except one time. one time.
Yes. Everybody's got a story.
Yeah, I don't know if this is fits in with what you guys are doing, but my good buddy and myself in high school, where I was driving him home one evening. It was about 10:45ish. I think he had to be home at 11. It was pouring the rain, and I'm driving him to his house, and right in the middle of a rainstorm, there's this little girl. There's this little girl standing beside the road with a little glow around her. And we both look at, I mean, it's a little girl in the middle of a rainstorm at 10:45 in the evening. And we both look at each other like, what in the world was that? We just kept on driving. I don't think we ever mentioned it again. Probably afraid to mention it again. But
Yeah, I'd say that's
yeah.
creepy.
Spooked me. Definitely spooked me.
Little kids are always the creepiest first. When people start talking about seeing little kids, and I start getting the wheelies right off the bat.
Yep.
Okay, what do you think about Bigfoot?
Well, I've been all over this country for the most part, and I spent a lot of time out in Oregon and Washington, and I was looking for Bigfoot. Not specifically, but while I was there, I had the eyes locked in and looking for Bigfoot. So, I'm a big fan of Harry and the Hendersons, the movie. I won't disregard there is Sasquatch. I will not disregard that.
That's what we like to hear too.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's kind of our homie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
The
big
got a Bigfoot story that he told on the podcast. He was staring down a barrel of one there when he was a younger man and wished he would have pulled the trigger. Didn't, but wished he would have pulled the trigger.
Might have been a rich man.
you about to be rich anyway, Ryan. You're getting ready to find John Swift's silver treasure, silver mine, son.
Right there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, what about you?
I'm ready to go like now.
Oh yeah, I am too. I'm pumped. I'm stoked for this whole thing. All right, JW, what about UFOs? How do you feel about UFOs?
Never encountered one.
Extraterrestrial.
Never encountered one. Never encountered one. So I guess I don't have a strong opinion on it. I do like Star Wars though.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Star Wars, that's hard to beat. Well, we have an opinion, and by we, I mean mostly me and sometimes Lance, have a strong opinion on this show that Hollywood kind of it's a lot of predictive programming and karmic effect that they have to put on. They have to show you what's going on, so that way when it happens, they're like, "Hey, you can't get mad at us. We try to tell you."
Right.
And it's a lot of things they put in there that eventually comes to fruition, we believe. So Star Wars might be right down the road. I mean, Elon is working on interplanetary travel really hard.
Yeah, Elon's got the ball rolling. He does.
He is an alien. Like, that's my strong opinion, is that he is, in fact. He leaves for a while and goes back to wherever he goes and gets new technology and comes back and starts another company, and it's billionaire. That's
plausible.
Under that, that's what I think about Elon. And it's just when I was talking about karmic effect, I always go back to, and I always had this idea that it became more prevalent to me back in 2019 in the fall, during football season. Fox comes out with The Masked Singer, and it's all the rage, right? It is. It hits everywhere. Antonio Brown's up there in a suit, whatever. We're trying to figure out all this. It's captivating America. The Masked Singer. It's on all the commercials. It's on everything. Your wife's talking about, the kids at school are talking about it. My wife's watching. She's in love with it. I don't care about it. I was indifferent, but it was everywhere. And what happened 4 months later? COVID hit, and we're all in masks. Right? So that was, to me, it was just like a whole, all right, they threw this out there to get us comfortable with the idea that we're going to be in masks for a while, and that's just the way that it is. And that's when I solidified it. Freaking bad. They're in they know something's up. They know something's going on. They put these things out there to kind of get us used to it.
Never thought about it that way.
There was a big documentary that came out on Netflix like 2 months before the pandemic hit, called Pandemic. I mean, you don't get much more predictive than that. Oh man. But anyway, JW, I just wanted to ask you those questions where you like to have some fun on here. And that has literally nothing to do with what we're talking about in this episode. But I do appreciate your honest answers, and I appreciate your openness.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. I really congratulations on the success of your podcast.
Before we let him go, we have to allow him to plug the Flying Aces.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely plugging all of his stuff.
I do a nightly live stream, almost nightly, probably 4 or 5 nights a week. I'm an iRacer, which is a computer simulation of racing, and got a pretty sizable following. Got probably 75 or 80 guys that we race with, and just have a good time with it. And there's real no structure or format. We're on YouTube and Twitch, Flying Aces TV, and we have a good time. If you like racing, it's a pretty good time.
And just watching, like I watch quite a bit of Flying Aces just because I love JW, want to support him as much as I can. Just watching him talk through races was it to me, not a huge race fan. Like I'm not. I watch on Sundays because it's on after church. It's usually nothing else is on, especially during the summertime. Usually no Sunday afternoon baseball on, so you watch a race. Just watching he just talk through things and see the laser focus in his eyes. He's making left-hand turns over and over and over and over again. It's good content. It's good content.
Yeah. On occasion, we make the right-hand turns. So, it's all forms of racing. We, my brother and I do it, and I do it more than he does, but most of the time he joins me, and we have a good time with it. So.
Well, yeah, that sounds awesome. I'll have to check that out. And Hill folk, definitely check it out. Go check this guy out. He's been kind enough to come on here and tickle your ears and your imaginations with his captivating storytelling and evidence that he obtained. So the least you could do is go give him a subscribe
on YouTube for him. Hit the sub for him. He needs all the subs he can get.
Yeah, we can always take new subs. Absolutely.
Hit the sub, as I hear people on Riley's tablet all the time. Smash that like button.
It kicks in the algorithm, I'm told. That like button. So it's important. It's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, JW, man, we really, really, really appreciate you coming on here. We appreciate you really leading us down this path. We've had a couple people, mention some things and we've talked about Chris and Melanie Byers and how awesome they were to point out this rock and have a conversation about it. And I guess that kind of jump started this whole thing with Lance showing you and you talking to him and the Swift Silver Mine popping up. But we really appreciate you being as open as you've been with this. Because, it would be easy to say, well, no, I think I know where this thing's at and I'm keeping it to myself. So we really, really appreciate you, I guess, choosing us to be able to go on this journey with you. And, man, hopefully we get to know each other a lot better over the course of the next little while.
Sure
Hopefully
thing.
not too long. I ain't trying to have this be like a decade event. I got things to do.
Yeah,
Man,
I
I
understand.
was hoping by Christmas.
You never know. You never know. Again, I want to thank Lance for I guess it was coincidence that he was talking about it and again piqued my interest and thank you guys for having me on and hopefully, as you said, hopefully I can lead to something. I do hope so. I don't think it's a one-man job. I really don't. I think it's going to take a lot of resources to one, find it, but two, definitely to excavate it and who knows where it goes. Who knows where it goes? But I think it's going to take more than one person. So
that's why we're building the tribe.
Amen to that.
And those coincidences, we call those synchronicities on this show.
We don't. We call them coincidences.
Oh, man. All right, JW. Again, I appreciate you so much, brother. I'm sure we'll be in contact a lot more. Thanks for coming on, man. I really do appreciate it.
Guys, thanks for having me. And again, congratulations on the success of your podcast.
Absolutely, sir. Congratulations on your gaming, streaming success. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You all take care.
See you, man.
Too, man. See you.
All right.
Oh, are we going to stop recording right now? Or are we going to talk about this for a minute?
Talk all you want to. He's good.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I told you, I was not lying when I told you the man is a captivating storyteller. Like when he starts talking, you just listen.
Yeah.
I mean, the content, obviously helps as well, right? 'Cause we're talking about Silvermine, but like we just talk all the time, and he talks, and like I'm locked into everything that he says because he is so captivating when he talks.
Yeah, I basically just hit mute and sat back. I was just listening to I took in everything he said.
Yes. In every conversation I had with him is like, we're talking about politics or sports or anything. Like I just listen to him talk because he's just one of those guys that just has a way with words.
Man, he's got me. I'm super stoked for this now.
Dude, me too. I'm so excited.
We had a couple conversations today about like what step if hypothetically speaking, we get boots on ground, we think we find evidence of this thing, right? We think we know where it's at. We had a pretty detailed conversation today, like what would be our steps, like what would we have to do to get the permits, to get like who we have to contact, who do we know, who can we get, you don't want too many hands in the cookie jar, obviously, but you're going to have to get some hands in the cookie jar to get the cookies. So we kind of had a conversation about what he has a pretty kind of brainstorm some ideas, kind of balance some stuff off each other about if off chance, let's say this fall, early spring, we get lucky and we stumble upon it, right? And then we got it. We know where it's at. What's our next steps? And I think we've got at least a pretty good start. When we are done recording, we'll kind of have that conversation. That's like a real conversation that we need to have. That I think would be there is a path. It's going to be a difficult one, and it's going to take some time and some effort. But I think we have carved out at least a starting point of a path to get it. Find it, get it dug out.
That's the right kind of thinking. That's the kind of thinking we need here, Lance. We already need. It's like we found this thing. Now, what's our next steps? That's the kind of thinking that
we had today.
Man, I'm loving it. I am loving that.
And I love the fact that we have a direct liaison with him in Lance.
Well, listen, he told me, boys, anytime you let me come on, just give me a couple days notice so I'm not streaming that night. I'll be glad to come on. And he listens to the show. He's become a fan of the podcast, obviously, because we've been talking about him. But even beforehand, he was kind of listening a little bit. He said, hey, listen, boys, just give me a couple days notice so I'll make sure I'm not streaming that night. Tell my guys that I'm not streaming tonight. I'll be glad to pop on.
Yeah, that's so awesome, dude.
All right,
I'm so ready
to go ahead.
I'm so ready to Indiana Jones this thing.
And it just so happens we do know a Dr. Jones.
We do. Dr. Jones.
But I was gonna say, why don't we end this and talk about what we need to talk about, and also have to pee.
Okay, good idea. We'll end it. Before we do, really quickly, again, I know we gave them a big shout out in the last episode, but again, I want to shout out our boys at the Hollow Sky podcast.
Yeah, I listened to Confessionals today. They hooked us up. It was nice of them.
They hooked it
to do that. That was awesome.
Boys, Kyle, Steve, y'all, we really appreciate you boys. I mean, jumping on there, you didn't have to talk about little old us.
And kick some money in for you just because. Appreciate that.
Yeah. But we really do appreciate you guys. We love you, and keep crushing. Just keep crushing. And we're here. Anything y'all need, we're here. So, Heel Folk, hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. We'll keep you updated as much as possible while our treasure hunting adventure continues to unfold. And we hope you keep joining back with us to to find out what's going on in our weird treasure hunting world or just the weird world in general. So until next time, we'll see y'all later.